Hey guys, Bruno here with Warehouse for another Formula One preview. This time we're going to Silverstone, one of the most iconic tracks on the Formula One calendar. This is a track that's been around since the beginning of Formula One. Essentially, back in the 50s, it used to be a airport field or just airport runways, and it's now over the years evolved and changed to become the Silverstone that we all know today. And for those of you that may not know too much in depth, we're going to be doing this Formula One preview to show you a lap around Silverstone. So we're going to go ahead and get started as we roll out of the pits at Silverstone. It's actually underneath, we're lower, much lower than the actual track surface itself. So you can see as we go up the pits, we're going up the hill, back joining into turn 2. The front straight that is now used to be the back straight, and then they flipped it around, so it's a little bit different. Like I said, Silverstone did change quite a bit, but our first 2 corners are extremely quick around Silverstone. Coming to turns 3 and 4, extremely tight, heavy on the brakes. Turn 5 is a quick one before the first DRS zone of the lap. Then we start tightening things up. One of the most agonizing corners to do when I race on the sim or even doing this preview lap, just this long, continuous hairpin, just waiting for the car to rotate before you can get back on power. It's a corner that requires a lot of patience for drivers that race here at Silverstone. Then we come into Copse, one of the most famous corners in Formula One, I almost want to say. Definitely in Silverstone, though, it's a ridiculously quick, pretty much flat out in qualifying before you head into Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel, which is also one of the most iconic and famous following S's or sequence of corners in Formula One. It's ridiculous the amount of load and G-force that the car is taking and that the driver is withstanding, but it makes for impressive racing and really shows off the performance of a Formula One car. Stowe was back there. This corner is really tricky. It goes off camber a little bit and then drops back on the hill before we come into Club right at the end of the lap into the final little chicane. We're going to go ahead and start the lap now, as we would. Beautiful, beautiful. I love the architecture here at Silverstone as well. As you can see the building onto the side. So going to turn 1, it is flat out in qualifying, flat out in the race as well, if I'm not mistaken. Turn 2 also flat out, but the car is heavily loaded through here. And then you got to get the car straightened up, slow down for turn 3, make sure that the wheel is straight. So you can see I kind of broke at an angle because you have so much load coming out of turn 2 that you got to get the car straightened up before you break into turn 3. Turn 3, super tight. You want to be about halfway over. You don't want to be too far over to the left because it's going to compromise your run into 4 here. As you can see, turn 4 is a very late apex because you want to get a nice run out. So out of 3, try to stay like 3/4 of the way out to the left, maybe halfway, to be able to bring it out all the way to the right to get a nice run out of turn 4. Turn 5 is not even really a corner, it's flat out with these Formula One cars before you hit your first DRS. So like I was talking about, coming down the back straight, we have also very agonizingly patience required corner. Really late apex is needed here just to make sure that we can set up and not be too far over to the right hand side of the track here, because when you come into this hairpin, we want to have as much of an angle as we can to better our rotation in the car. We don't want to be too tight, but it's very easy to do through the sequence of corners. A lot of runoff you can use, as you can see, really being able to throw the car out wide, and then into Copse. So we get into the famous sections here. So into Copse, it is very quick. Obviously on this lap I'm going a little bit slower just to show you. You can have 2 wheels up on the inside curve there. But it is essentially flat. A lot of runoff, but you got to be careful so you don't get invalidated lap time. Keep an eye out this weekend. There might be a few drivers that get issues going out wide there. And then, like I said, into Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel. So trying to use as much of the curve as you can. It's all about the sequence. You don't want to be overdriving the entry and being too tight for the next one. You got to really flow through there, and it's really impressive to see. As late of an apex as you possibly can coming out of Chapel, the final one right there. There is a little bit of runoff, but the car is so loaded that you don't want to go too early or else you might fall off the track. So the car is constantly working through the S's there. It's really fascinating to watch the onboards and the out cameras. And then into Stowe, as you can see, so the track is a little bit off camber before it drops down the hill again. You got to be careful. Here's another place where you can get an off track invalidated lap time in qualifying, so you got to be careful there before heading into the final chicane. So extremely slow through here. Got to really make sure the car is not too far out to the right in this situation. Just to be able to get a better run out. And then you can really use as much of the runoff there before Club. And Club is a flat out corner through here, but it's a little bit sketchy because the car is really loaded and on edge. But flat out essentially in this Formula One car. So as we watch now, we're going to go for a quicker lap here. You can really see the car working and me pushing as much as I can on this baseline setup for Formula One. This is a 2016 car that's available on iRacing. It is not the same as the Formula One 2021 cars, which have an insane amount of downforce compared to back in 2016. But it still gives you a pretty good comparison. But you can still see, even back in 2016, the level of bravery required for driving around Silverstone, especially going through the S's and a corner like Cost, which is coming up. So go ahead and enjoy the lap. It's quite fascinating to see. It's really fun to drive this track as well. It's quite a hoot for sure. Alright guys, so moving on into predictions, I think the last Formula 1 Grand Prix, the Austrian Grand Prix, was quite a shock to see Lando Norris doing so well. I was really happy to see it. Obviously he got that 5-second penalty, which scared me a little bit that he wouldn't get the podium, but he ended up being able to pull it off, which was really awesome to see. And Red Bull continuing their tremendous stride with a fantastic season going on so far, especially with Max Verstappen behind the wheel. I have high hopes for him clinching the championship, so we'll see what happens. But my prediction for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone are as follows. I think Max Verstappen is going to continue this crazy momentum he has, pull off yet another win. Lewis Hamilton P2, and I think Lando Norris with P3 topping up podium. It's a little bit risky to say, but I think there's that extra motivation for Norris, who just came off a really great result coming into Silverstone this season. Obviously, it's going to be a home Grand Prix for him. Hamilton's going to be trying as hard as he can because it is his home Grand Prix, and this one means a lot to him, obviously. Through the radio communications you can hear in the past years, he loves racing in Silverstone. Fans are going to be there, so it's going to be a really big event for him for sure. Obviously, this is a big team race as well because a lot of teams are located in UK around the track. It's a home track for many teams, so it's going to be quite an important race in general for Formula One. But I think it's going to be Verstappen, Hamilton, and Norris on the podium. Should be a really interesting race. Silverstone, it makes for fantastic racing. It's an awesome track, great to see, good DRS zone. So we'll see what happens. Make sure you guys admire and enjoy the car working through the S's. It's fantastic to see the amount of technology and how well a Formula One car drives through those high-speed corners. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy it. Hopefully this helped give you a little bit of an insight to Silverstone, and I hope you guys enjoy the Grand Prix this weekend.